I call the Senate out of recess. Call the Senate to order. Recognize Senator Birdsall for a motion.
We're out of recess.
We're out of.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adjourn from the late session.
Senator Birdsall moves the Senate adjourn from the late session. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion to adjourn passes. We are now in the early session. The Senate will be attentive to our chaplain, Reverend Mark Warren.
Let's pray. Lord, we are here thinking about Senator Ricciardi as she's not feeling well. We just pray that you are with her and that she is attended to well and that she heals up quickly and is back to full health. Lord, we're also mindful as the drives in today, we saw the blooms of spring and the trees coming to life. And we thank you for the gift of spring. It's a reminder that you make all things new. As your word says in Isaiah, behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? As the earth awakens around us, I pray you would also awaken fresh purpose within each one of us and within the Senate. May the laws crafted here bring new life to the people of New Hampshire, removing burdens, breaking down barriers, and protecting the freedoms and opportunities that allow our families, our communities, and our towns and our cities to prosper. Grant each senator today with wisdom, unity of purpose, and a heart to serve the common good. Let the work done here sow seeds of hope that will grow and flourish across our great state. I pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Senator Fenton, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Senator Fenton. Senators Abbas and Ricciardi are absent today, and their absence is excused. Senator Reverend, you have some guests to introduce.
I would like to introduce in the gallery here and welcome Sarah Burke-Cohen, who we see every day here representing the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And with her is her daughter, a 7th grader at Runlet Middle School here in Concord, and sitting in the gallery, as I did in 7th grade, possibly our future state senator from District 15, Evelyn Evie Cohen.
Thank you, Senator Reardon. I have the honor of introducing my son, Aidan Murphy. The parade of Murphys continues. This is my second son. He attends middle school at Bedford-Lurgio. Please welcome him. He's serving as a Senate page today. And lastly, I have the pleasure of introducing Christy Merrill. Christy is our former Chief of Staff under Senator Morse. Please welcome her back. Without objection, today's FN report is adopted. Bills removed from the consent calendar. From the Committee on Election Law, House Bill 107. From ED&A, House Bill 331, House Bill 445. From HHS, House Bill 357, and House Bill 731. From Judiciary, House Bill 468, House Bill 482, House Bill 776. From Ways and Means, House Bill 302. Without objection, the following bills are special ordered to the next session. From Election Law, House Bill 107. From Judiciary, House Bill 207 and House Bill 551. Without objection, the following bills are special ordered to the Thursday, May 15th session. From Education, House Bill 90. From Executive Departments Administration, House Bill 85. From HHS, House Bill 731. We will now take up the consent calendar. Senator Birdsall moves the consent calendar with the relevant amendments as printed in the day's calendar be adopted, and that all such bills found ought to pass be ordered as follows. FN bills not waived under Senate Rule 4-5 to the Committee on Finance. Non-FN bills approved for referral to Finance by the day's FN report to the Committee on Finance, and all other bills to third reading. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. No. The ayes have it. The consent calendar is adopted. The committee will be addendum to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. I almost said Madam. Mr. President, the Committee on Education, to which was referred House Bill 76FN, an act relative to tracking special education complaints. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3-1. Senator Sullivan for the committee.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 76FN ought to pass. House Bill 76FN requires the Department of Education to create and maintain a tracking system for all state complaints related to special education services. It also directs the department to publish summarized, anonymized complaint data online and issue an annual report identifying patterns or systemic concerns. The bill is intended to enhance transparency and accountability in special education without disclosing any personally identifiable student information. I respectfully ask for your support, for the support of the Senate Education Committee's recommendation of ought to pass for House Bill 76FN. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. The bill is now on second reading and open further discussion or amendment. Senator Prentice to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to introduce a floor amendment and then speak to my floor amendment.
You're
if I may.
recognized.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. I would like to introduce floor amendment 1859S. I'm just making sure I got the right glasses on today. So this would amend, obviously my purpose here is to amend House Bill 76 to make it what I believe would be a better bill. I appreciate the senator from District 18's opening comments and introduction of this, but what I think we could do here, I mean, I agree that we need to track complaints. I agree that we need to identify trends and patterns in special education that are going to need attention, and I think that this, in a way, provides, really provides a level of accountability and not pressure, but with accountability becomes a focus that we are lacking right now with the number of complaints and the system for special education as it is. So I agree on all those things, but I actually think we could have balanced transparency, and I do believe there are some potential privacy issues with this. So my intent is to try to make this better. So first, I want to talk about privacy and look at the Section 1, Line 6 on this amendment. It would take what is in the original bill as being an external process and make it internal in terms of the filing of the complaint. And we can see in here that it has specifically the complainant's contact information. So my concern is that a family or a child would have their information in what would be in the original bill in public. I want to put it into a private tracking system. So that would be number one. Number two, in Section 2, I want to align language. So in Section 2, I want to take this and make this the external part, which is the posting on the website. Item B, I want to align the language where it says complaint, a summary of the complaint, or a summary of the allegation in the original bill, and make it a summary of the complaint, because that is consistent in other parts of this bill. So we use that language, what the summary of that is. And thirdly, the annual report, which is in Section 3 of this bill. Isn't that nice? It's the third thing. It's in Section 3. And what that would do is refer to Section 2 and say this report that is going to be published would align with the part of Section 2 which would align the language from being allegation to complaint, would not include the complainant's name, and you'll have to forgive me as I've been on a little bit of a run this morning, but the other piece that I wanted to eliminate from the external part of this is the name of the law firm. I'm not clear on why we have to put the name of the law firm that is involved in this in any public posting. What's most important is that there's an issue, what the nature of the issue is, and a system for tracking that. So the final report would reflect all of those things. So going to an internal system, protecting the family, the name of the family that's involved in this. The second part is what we put on the public-facing website, and the third part would be the final report. And lastly, I'll say, and I promise lastly, is that the LBA is going to be doing an audit of our special education systems next year. So this could provide us with an excellent bridge to get from here to there, but we do have this, we are scheduled for this rather large and comprehensive audit. So I would appreciate the support of my colleagues on trying to make this bill what I think would be a better bill, and I appreciate, I hope to appreciate, well, I always appreciate your support. I would appreciate your support on this floor amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Prentice. The amendment is open for further discussion. Is there any further discussion? Senator Ward to speak.
I appreciate all the work that has gone into the amendment for this bill by the senator from District 5. However, the original bill as presented is codifying the process that the DOE is following. So I would just add that.
Ward, any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is the adoption of floor amendment 1859S. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The noes have it. The floor amendment is defeated. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? All in favor of the motion of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted. The bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred House Bill 319FN, an act relative to responsibility of local school districts to provide transportation for pupils in kindergarten. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3-1. Senator Ward for the committee.
Senator Ward.
Thank you, Mr. President. That move House Bill 319 ought to pass. As amended, House Bill 319 removes the state mandate requiring school districts to provide transportation to half-day kindergarten students, allowing local school boards to determine their own transportation policies for those students. The bill does not prohibit districts from offering transportation, but instead gives them the flexibility to make decisions based on local needs and resources. This change repeals an unfunded state requirements while maintaining the ability of districts to serve their communities as they see fit. I respectfully ask for your support for the Senate Education Committee's recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 319. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ward. Senator Prentice to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. So I rise in opposition to House Bill 319, and quite simply, my opposition, well, first of all, I appreciate that there is consideration to the locals. I believe that this is, I spoke with the sponsor from the House on why he brought this forward, was a request on from his local school board about, for smaller communities, the need for this half-day transportation for not all communities is a good fit. So he was bringing this forward, as he should, on behalf of his constituency. But my concern here is that this opens the door for communities to say they will no longer do this. And if they don't do this, what we could have are two different things. One thing is that half-day kindergarten, the ability for kids our children to get to half-day kindergarten could actually be diminished. And we know that when we get them into kindergarten, either it's half day or full day, but here we're talking about the half day group, is that they may not be identified early on as children that might be in need of what I just talked about, special education services. Kindergarten is a tremendous preparation and foundation for moving into the first grade. But what we know is that whether you're a small community or you're a large community, not all parents are able to move their children back and forth midday, especially if they're working out of town, to kindergarten. I know that that the daycare provider that I had, and my daughter Phoebe went to half-day kindergarten, that if my daycare provider didn't have the authorization and ability to transport her daycare crew, as I called them, back and forth to half-day kindergarten, I was working in Concord. That was in Enfield, New Hampshire. How would I have gotten Phoebe back and forth? It would have become an issue of whether our family could do this, and I believe this is true for a number of families. So it becomes an issue of access to even to half-day kindergarten, which is a great foundation. We know that it gives them and the educational system the opportunity to identify and start to work with these children to see if there are issues that are going to need further attention. We also know that this could become an issue for workforce for parents like myself who worked an hour away from my small rural community. So I ask my colleagues to oppose this, and I hope that we can work on a better bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Prentice. Is there any further discussion? Senator Rosenwald.
Of my colleague from District 5. She'll take it. Thank you.
I'm happy to take your question.
So if a family can't transport their child home from half-day kindergarten, and my kids went to half-day kindergarten too, there are two options are no kindergarten or expensive private kindergarten. Wouldn't that raise costs for families?
Thank you for the question. So exactly. I focused more on the side of the fact that it would limit access and potentially no kindergarten for these children. But if they are to go to a private kindergarten, it's going to raise that cost for that particular family who already has this transportation that's available to them. So I thank you for the question. That is my response.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any further discussion on this? 5-minute recess. The Senate will be in recess until 20 of. I call the Senate out of recess. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of all to pass on House Bill 319FN. Is there any further discussion? Roll call is requested by Senator Perkins-Coie, seconded by Senator Fenton. Are you ready for the question? That was the decision. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi's excused. Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGue.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Carson's excused. Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Bertzel.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins-Coie.
No.
Senator Abbas is excused. Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altshuler.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes. The ayes have it by a vote of 13 to 8. The bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred, House Bill 440, an act relative to educator licensing. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3 to 1. Senator
Ward.
Thank you.
Senator Abbas.
Senator Ward for the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 440 requires the State Board of Education to adopt rules mandating that candidates for initial educator licenses, including teachers, administrators, instructional specialists, and educational specialists, must obtain passing scores on professional assessments designated by the board. The bill also includes an exemption for career and technical education teachers, allowing them to qualify through basic skills testing or an industry-recognized credential. This bill aligns educator certification requirements with professional standards while allowing flexibility for vocational pathways. I respectfully ask for your support of the Senate Education Committee's recommended motion of ought to pass for House Bill 440. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Ward. Senator Altshuler to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to the ought to pass motion. I will draw your attention to the beginning of the new language that says candidates shall obtain passing scores on professional education assessments. And what that means is the Praxis Core academic skills for educators. That is the basic academic skills assessment for candidates who are seeking a teacher or instructional license. What's missing is a paring down of requirements for an advanced education in the field and training in the field. What's missing is that there's no training and there's no test in the Praxis Core academic skills for educators about classroom management. There's nothing in there that asks about your skills in compliance with IDEA. So that opens up schools to a tremendous liability. And this exemption further downgrades teacher licensing because having a CPA doesn't necessarily make you a good math teacher. Because you can do doesn't always mean you can teach. Being a published author doesn't make you a great English teacher. It makes you a really good author and someone who can possibly give some insight as to the process, but it doesn't make you necessarily make you a good English teacher. And working in a lab at Lonza doesn't mean you can necessarily teach 20 10th graders of biology students. Additionally, this bill creates 2 new professions that are not defined and not even mentioned in Chapter 186 that encompasses RSA 186. which are found on line 7, instructional specialists and educational specialists. They don't exist in chapter right now, and they're undefined. So we're putting in two professions that no one knows who they are, what they do, and now we can just call people can call themselves that. So this bill is not ready to go. It should be re-referred if there's an intention to create an opportunity for professionals to get temporary licensure, but this isn't it. So I respectfully ask the body to vote this down.
Thank you, Senator Altshuler. The bill is in second reading and open for further discussion or amendment. Senator Prentice, do you wish to move an amendment?
I do wish to move an amendment, but I'd like to ask for a 2-minute recess if possible.
2-minute recess.
Thank you.
question of Senator Altshuler.
Take my question? Yes. Thank you for taking my question. Would this bill apply to chartered public schools and private schools that take public money?
Thank you for the question. No, on line 3, it's a certification of teachers, supervisors, and administrators in the public schools. This is just for public schools, not public charter or private schools that take public money.
Thank you.
I recognize Senator Prentice for a floor amendment.
Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. I'd like to introduce floor amendment 1860S.
You may speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. So the purpose of this floor amendment is to expand on the requirements for the public school educators, teachers, and expand this language into public charter schools, recognizing that the public charter schools they have a carve-out in statute that says only up to 50% of them have to meet this licensing requirement. So what this would do is say all public schools, all public charter schools, up to that 50% in accordance with statute. So that is that's my floor amendment. I hope my colleagues can support this, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Floor amendment number 1860 has been proposed. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Senator Sullivan is recognized to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank my colleague from District 5. However, it also states in law for charter schools, it can be 50% of the teachers have to be credentialed or have 3 years of experience in the subject matter that they're teaching. So it would actually significantly change how charter schools can hire their teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment 1860? Okay, the question is on the adoption of floor amendment number 1860. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The noes have it. The floor amendment fails. Okay, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 440. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred House Bill 571, an act including Constitution Day and patriotic exercises required by public schools. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3-1. Senator Ward for the committee.
Senator Ward. Thank you, Madam President. I move the House Bill 571 ought to pass. House Bill 571 adds Constitution Day to the list of occasions during which public schools are required to conduct patriotic exercises alongside Memorial Day and Veterans Day. These exercises may include discussion of the U.S. and New Hampshire constitutions, the Pledge of Allegiance, and other events promoting civic understanding and appreciation of our constitutional rights. This bill helps foster a stronger understanding of our foundational documents and reinforces the responsibilities of citizenship. I respectfully ask for your support of the Senate Education Committee's recommendation of ought to pass for House Bill 571. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Altshuler.
Madam President, I rise to encourage this body to lead by example. If we value the Constitution, then let's honor it. Let's show our patriotism by giving every Granite State public school student a fully funded, constitutionally mandated, adequate education. And in fact, why stop at adequate? Why aren't we striving for excellence? Sitting here in this chamber, voting to mandate school assemblies for Constitution Day might feel great. Wave a flag, walk out of here without a second thought as to who actually has to follow through on making this happen. Our teachers. This bill just adds one more thing onto their mandatory checklist that we sprinkle things onto every year without an extra hour to plan it and no money to support it. We shouldn't be patting ourselves on the back for adding yet another requirement for only public schools to meet under the banner of patriotic exercises, while simultaneously negotiating a budget that drains more money from those same schools in favor of private schools that will be under no obligation to do the same. House Bill 571 is an unfunded mandate on only our public schools. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 571. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred House Bill 667 FN, an act relative to health education requiring the viewing of certain videos demonstrating gestational development from embryo to fetus through birth by public school students. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by a vote of 3 to 1. Senator Sullivan for the committee.
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that House Bill 667 FM ought to pass with amendment. As amended, House Bill 667 FN requires that public school health curriculum include age-appropriate and medically accurate instruction on human sexuality, including the presentation of a high-quality computer-generated animation or ultrasound video demonstrating early fetal development, specifically the formation of the heart, brain, and other vital organs. The purpose of the bill is to provide students with a clear and accurate understanding of human development as part of the broader health education curriculum. I respectfully ask for your support for the support of the Senate Education Committee's recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 667. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. The first order of business is the committee amendment. Is there any discussion on the committee amendment? Okay. Seeing none. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee amendment is adopted. The bill is on second reading. Is there any further discussion or amendment? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 667. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass as amended is adopted, and the bill is ordered to the Committee on Finance. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Education, to which was referred House Bill 749 FN, an act requiring instruction on communism in public high schools. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 3 to 2. Senator Altshuler for the committee.
Senator Altshuler.
That's right. Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 749 FN inexpedient to legislate. House Bill 749 FN would require public high schools to provide a minimum of 1 hour instruction on the nature and history of communism. The content could be delivered either as a standalone session or integrated into an existing course. While the intent of the bill is to strengthen students' understanding of world history and political ideologies, the Senate Education Committee determined that local public school districts are already empowered to incorporate this content where appropriate, and mandating a 1 hour minimum statewide program infringes on local control over curriculum. Respectfully ask for your support of the Senate Education Committee's recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 749. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 749. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Election Law and Municipal Affairs, to which was referred House Bill 230L, an act relative to adoption of public health ordinances by municipalities. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 3-2. Senator Gray, to the committee.
Senator Gray.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 230L ought to pass. House Bill 230L clarifies public health officials may make regulations related to public health. The bill allows the local health officer to make regulations to prevent and remove nuisances that would adversely impact the health and safety of the citizens with the approval of the selectmen. For those reasons, Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee asks for your support on the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 230L. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? Senator Perkins-Coker.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in opposition to the committee's recommendation of ought to pass on HB 230, a bill we have seen before. As we heard during testimony, the procedures that are being altered within this bill are something that are both relied upon and well understood by both the courts and the towns. There are many issues that courts and towns may need to address independently, which this bill could impede. There were also concerns raised in the committee regarding health officers who are making decisions that would not be authorized by the statute going forward, but for the vast majority of these situations, any recommendations put forward by a health officer do in fact end up going to the Board of Health in a public meeting. The bill is written would lack clarity and give very little discretion to our health officers to respond quickly to situations like spraying for mosquitoes, responding to some kind of trash infestation where there's rodents, things that a health officer just needs to do as a normal course of business. So I think when we look at this bill, what we want to make sure is that our health officers are able to respond to unforeseen circumstances quickly and nimbly and just keep us all safe. So I hope you'll join me in opposing the ought to pass motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 230. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred House Bill 214FN, an act relative to the regulation of recreational therapists and respiratory care practitioners. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 4-0. Senator McHugh for the committee.
Senator McHugh.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 214FN ought to pass. This bill clarifies the rulemaking authority of the Executive Director of the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification with regards to the regulation of recreational therapists and respiratory practitioners. It adds sections related to criminal history records checks and privileged communications to these chapters to be more consistent with other OPLC-related chapters. HB 214FN completes the elimination of the Allied Health Board, which was repealed in the budget 2 years ago. This bill is a request of OPLC, and the ED&A Committee asks your support for the motion of ought to pass. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any discussion? And I recognize Senator Pearl for a floor amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm bringing forward Senate Amendment 2025-1794S. So soon after we passed the bill out of committee, OPLC came to me and said we have some issues that we've recognized with background checks. If you remember, we've had some other bills pertaining to that with some of our solid waste facilities. Well, the same condition is occurring with some of the OPLC background checks. So OPLC drafted some new language, which you have before you in this amendment, and I'll run over real quickly. I know it looks like an extensive amendment, but in a nutshell, this is what it does. This floor amendment is intended to address concerns expressed by the Department of Safety about OPLC's ability to receive FBI fingerprints and criminal history reports from the Division of State Police. It changes Section 4 of the bill to reflect technical language changes suggested to OPLC to meet FBI criteria for statutory approval of criminal background checks. Excuse me. This amendment also creates new Sections 5 and 6 to push out the effective dates of other criminal background statutes for boards under OPLC that have not become effective yet or approved by the FBI by a period of 1 year to ensure uninterrupted processing of applications involving criminal background checks. Lastly, this amendment moves former Section 5 to Section 7 and amends it to change the effective dates of each section of this bill to ensure an uninterrupted processing of board applications involving criminal background checks. I would encourage you to support the amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any discussion on Amendment 1794? Senator Prentice, for a question of?
Of the senator from District 17. Will you take my question?
I certainly will.
Okay. So just for clarification, and I'm sorry I didn't approach you earlier, on page 2, line 17, item C, the Respiratory Care Practitioners Board is not a member of the Interstate Licensure Compact. So they are not currently, but would this preclude them from, if the RTs wanted to join an interstate compact in the future?
Thank you for the question. I don't believe it would.
Okay.
I believe this is just clarifying that currently they are not.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
The question is on the adoption of Floor Amendment 179 Floor. Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the floor amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The floor amendment is adopted. The bill is still on second reading and open for further discussion and amendment. Okay. The question is on the adoption of ought to pass as amended on House Bill 214. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted and the bill is ordered to third reading. The Senate will be in recess for 3 minutes.
The Senate will be out of recess. I recognize Senator Rosenwald for an introduction of a guest.
Thank you, Madam President. I've been wanting to do this all session. I think it's about time we had a baby on this Senate floor. This is my granddaughter, Tully Sorensen, whose mother is in the House representing Portsmouth Ward 2, and her uncle, who some of you know, Henry, was hanging around with her outside and didn't want to come in because he's not dressed appropriately, I think. But this is Tully. She comes here on session days, and please help me welcome her to the Senate.
Yeah, let's not do it too loud.
See if I can hand her back.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh.
And if you would indulge me for a second, I think we've got kind of a little competition started today. As you know, in June is Father's Day. And our good friend from District 10 has got a challenge, I think, going. He's wearing his #1 dad socks today. So for all the gentlemen in the chamber, let's see what happens. I would also like to, I'm going to make the request for the gentlemen in the chamber, if you would like to take your suit coats off, please feel free to do so. It is getting a little warm in here. Okay, she wants us to go. She likes us, yay.
She's crying.
Okay. Without objection, the following bills are special ordered to May 8th. House Bill 190 and House Bill 380 in Judiciary. Okay. The committee will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred House Bill 198 FN, an act relative to legalizing certain quantities of cannabis and establishing penalties for smoking or vaping cannabis in public. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate. Senator Gannon for the committee.
Senator Gannon.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to table.
The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. Senator Fenton has a question.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam President. If you believe, as I believe, that there is a need for a remedying of the penalties regarding the possession of cannabis in small quantities, and that this bill does not deal with the sale or regulation of cannabis, but rather arresting individuals and inherently targeting certain demographics of people.
For your point of order?
Senator, not now be speaking to the legislation and not to the current motion.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, when you issue, and everyone should have gotten your paper here, when you ask for a parliamentary inquiry, it is a request directed to the presiding officer for information or clarification about a parliamentary procedure as it applies to the proceeding. So we're talking about really the motion to table has been made, and we're moving forward that. So your question should be toward the tabling motion, whether or not it's appropriate.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll try and fix it a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Senator.
As the #1 dad. If I believe possessing something and that we should not be tabling this motion and we should rather encumber our law enforcement officers who are better served focusing on other things, would I now vote no on the tabling motion?
Senator.
Thank you.
Roll call, Madam President.
Okay, a roll call has been requested by Senator Altschiller on the tabling motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Yes, you are recognized.
Madam President, if I know, we have debated cannabis to death. And if I also know that the governor will veto any cannabis bill that comes to her desk, would I vote yes on the tabling motion? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, the motion to lay on the table is, again, non-debatable. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, excuse me. A roll call has been requested by Senator Altschiller, and seconded by who? Senator Rosenwald. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Yes.
Senator McConkey.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No?
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi is excused. Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGue.
Yes.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
No.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
No.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
No.
Senator Abbas is excused. Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altschiller.
No.
Senator Carson.
Yes. The ayes have it from a total of 12 in favor, 10 against, and the bill is laid on the table. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred House Bill 226FN, an act relative to the use of drug checking equipment. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate. By a vote of 3 to 2, Senator Gannon for the committee.
Senator Gannon.
Thank you, Madam President. I make a motion to table.
Okay. Senator Gannon has moved to lay House Bill 226 on the table. The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor of the motion? Okay. Senator Altschiller has requested a roll call. Is there a second? Senator Rosenwald has seconded. Okay. The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. If you are in favor of the tabling motion, say aye. If you are opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Rochefort.
Yes.
Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator McConkey.
Aye.
Senator Waters.
No.
Senator Prentice.
No.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Innes.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Ricciardi is excused. Senator Fenton.
No.
Senator McGue.
Aye.
Senator Avard.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
No.
Senator Reardon.
No.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pearl.
Yes.
Senator Sullivan.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Long.
No.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
No.
Senator Abbas is excused. Senator Gannon.
Yes.
Senator Altschiller.
No.
And Senator Carson.
Aye. Well, I can't very well ask you to say aye without me saying aye. The ayes have it. It's a total of 14 to 8, and House Bill 226 is laid on the table. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred House Bill 451FN, an act establishing the Paint Product Stewardship Program. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill be re-referred to committee by a vote of 4 to 1. Senator Lang for the committee.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 451 to be re-referred to the committee. This bill would have created a post-consumer stewardship program called Paint Care that would have allowed consumers to bring leftover paint back to participating stores to be recycled. HB 451 would have imposed a fee on the paint based on the volume and paid by the consumer, making it a user fee. Concerns arose about the ability of non-participants to still sell paint in New Hampshire. Industry stakeholders will work to address these issues and let the committee revisit it in the fall. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is to re-refer to the committee. Is there any discussion? Senator Avard.
Thank you, Madam President. And on behalf of my colleague from District 9, who is not here, she had asked me to read this talking points for her, and I'm glad to do so. The proposed paint stewardship model is backed by major stakeholders, including the paint industry itself, the Business and Industry Association, BIA, Waste Management, Casella, and the New Hampshire Municipal Association, all of whom are in favor of this bill. Retailers and retail lumber companies have remained neutral on the bill, while some, like Aubuchon Hardware, actively support it because it drives increased traffic through their stores, and there's a voluntary participation in the paint take-back program. The program comes at zero cost to the Department of Environmental Services, and it significantly reduces municipal expenses. Paint currently costs about 50% of the household hazardous waste collection costs. And by diverting the paint from household hazardous waste streams, the model helps conserve valuable land capacity and addresses leachate issues, improving long-term waste management outcomes. After referring this bill back to committee, the senator from District 9 looks very much forward to its return and opportunity to pass and to work with her colleagues. A strong piece of legislation that advances our waste reduction goals in a pro-business, industrial-led manner. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is to re-refer to committee. Is there any further discussion? Senator Sullivan. Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. So this is the same paint tax that we've been fighting for years. And in committee, we heard that this will benefit some retailers based on foot traffic. However, not all hardware stores or paint suppliers have the ability to store empty cans until somebody comes to retrieve them. So it would only benefit some retailers. In that, it would be a wonderful program that I would support when it's re-referred if this was an opportunity for retailers to take the initiative to have this program on their own, since they will benefit from it. Furthermore, this is a tax on every single can of paint that is purchased. It is not a fee on every can that is simply recycled. So even cans that aren't recycled will have this tax on it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perkins-Coca, you have a question of?
A question of my colleague from District 2. Thank you, Senator, for taking my question. The motion before us is re-refer. Is the intent for you to work with the prime sponsor of this bill through the fall to make sure that you can address all concerns that have been raised and come back to us with a recommendation on this?
Thank you for the question. The goal is I want to get to yes, and I'm going to be working with the prime sponsors as well as the manufacturers and other people in the industry to try to get to that yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the motion is re-referred to committee. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of re-refer to committee on House Bill 451. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. The motion of re-refer to committee is adopted. Okay, we are now going to move to the bills that have been removed from the consent calendar. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred House Bill 331, an act relative to the Secretary of State's procedures for enrolled bills. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 5-0. Senator Reverend for the committee.
On 331, thank you. I rise to and ask the Senate to find House Bill 331 inexpedient to legislate. House Bill 331 requires the Secretary of State to publish the location of enrolled bills and resolutions on its public website. The committee felt that this bill, as written, would not effectuate the intended goal of increasing transparency without unintended consequences. I hope my colleagues will support the ITL motion of the committee that voted 5-0.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perkins-Coca to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I rise just briefly to say that this remains a priority of the House and that the burden falls on their staff in terms of responding to inquiries and making sure their members know the status of bills. So I do hope this is something we can work on in the future and find a way to solve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Okay. The question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 331. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed no. The ayes have it. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. Before we move on, I'd like to introduce a guest. We have up in the gallery Representative Kim Rice, who's joining us for some time this afternoon. Please join me in welcoming her. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
445? Yep, I got it. I just had that for you. Okay. Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Executive Departments and Administration, to which was referred, House Bill 445, an act establishing a study commission to examine the causes of ways to alleviate the shortage of law enforcement officers in New Hampshire. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass with an amendment by vote 4-0. Senator Gannon for the committee.
Senator Gannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to do what I do best today, make a motion to table. Thank you.
Senator Gannon has requested that we lay House Bill 445 on the table. The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion has been adopted and House Bill 445 is laid on the table. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Health and Human Services, to which is referred, House Bill 357, an act relative to the Department of Health and Human Services rulemaking authority regarding immunization requirements. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is inexpedient to legislate by a vote of 5-0. Senator Birdsall for the committee.
Senator Birdsall.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill limits childhood immunization requirements to diseases identified in statute. The bill removes the authority of the Commissioner of Health and Human Services to adopt rules requiring immunization for additional childhood diseases. The committee does not feel it is best to move forward with this legislation due to the potential unintended consequences of this legislation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Birdsall. The motion is inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 357. Is there any discussion? Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, RSA 141C:20 says that all parents or legal guardians shall have their children immunized against certain diseases, including diphtheria, mumps, pertussis, poliomyelitis, rubella, rubeola, and tetanus. And then the law continues, any other vaccinations as determined by the Commissioner of the Department. This bill would revoke that delegation of authority. This is not a bill about the efficiency of vaccines. It's a bill about who gets to make the decision. You may hear the Commissioner has not abused the authority and has rarely used it, and that may well be true. But departments change, commissioners and cultures over time, and the wrong person could well begin forcing those vaccinations in the future. The act of forcing parents to give their children injections of anything into their bodies is perhaps the most extreme example of state power. It is no small thing. And if we're going to do that as a state, the decision to do that and the power to order that should rest in we, the elected representatives of the people, the general court, not in an appointed department head. It's about who gets to make the decision. So I personally am voting against the ITL motion. I hope you will join me. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Avard is recognized to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I think it's fair to say that I've been one of the most vocal critics of vaccine mandates in the Senate. I stood up against anyone in New Hampshire losing their jobs because they declined to get the COVID vaccine. And I support the rights of parents to opt out of vaccines for their children. I also believe that the authority of the vaccine policy must start and end with the people's representatives in the legislature. Under our system, the legislature requires the Department of Health and Human Services to make the changes to our school immunization requirements through the rules process. This gives the Joint Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules, ultimately the entire General Court, and the authority over all rules proposed by our state agencies. The Department of Health and Human Services has not added any vaccine in the last 20 years requirements. And if they do so, I know that GELCAR, the Oversight Committee, will take a very close look at it. HB 357 would, in fact, short-circuit the rules process that has been working very well and which remains and it maintains legislative authority. That's why I support the committee's recommendation to ITL HB 357. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The motion is inexpedient to legislate. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of inexpedient to legislate on House Bill 357. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion of inexpedient to legislate is adopted. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred House Bill 468 FN, an act establishing the crime and penalties for unlawful use of unmanned aircraft systems. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 5-0. Senator Altschiller for the committee.
Senator Altschiller.
Yes. Thank you, Madam President. House Bill 468 establishes the crime of unlawful use of unmanned aircraft systems and penalties thereto. Operations which violate FAA rules or airspace, interfere with law enforcement, are negligent or directly harmful, or incur upon state, federal, or correctional facilities shall be unlawful. Penalties may range from violations for initial offenses to felonies for significantly disruptive and dangerous operations. The committee asks for your support in the ought to pass motion.
Senator Birdsall.
President, I move to table.
The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Okay. House Bill 468 is laid on the table. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred House Bill 482 FN, an act relative to penalty for driving over 100 miles per hour. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 5-0. Senator Gannon for the committee.
Makes a motion to table.
Okay. We have a motion that has been made by Senator Gannon to lay House Bill 482 on the table. Is there any discussion? Oh, excuse me, it's non-debatable. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 482 is laid on the table. Okay, because I might have skipped one. I think that's what happened, Tammy. Yeah. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred House Bill 776 FN, an act relative.
That's the problem.
82.
Oh, no, it's here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. A little ahead of myself today.
That's all right. Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred House Bill 776 FN, an act relative to the crime of aggravated driving while intoxicated. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 4-0. Senator Gannon for the committee.
Senator Gannon.
Makes a motion to table.
The motion to lay on the table is non-debatable. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and House Bill 776 is laid on the table. The Senate will be attentive to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam President. The Committee on Ways and Means, to which was referred House Bill 302, an act relative to enabling the State Treasury to invest in precious metals and digital assets. Having considered the same, the committee recommends that the bill is ought to pass by a vote of 4-1. Senator Lang for the committee.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Madam President. House Bill 302 is enabling legislation that gives the state treasurer the authority to invest state funds in precious metals and digital assets. This bill includes various safeguards, including capping the amount of funds that can be invested in these particular areas at 5% and requiring the digital assets to have a market capitalization of over $500 billion average over the previous year. Senate Ways and Means Committee asks you to support ought to pass motion that was voted 4-1. And if I could speak to this, Madam President?
You may.
Thank you. So this bill, again, is just a modernization bill that expands the opportunities for the treasurer to be able to invest. In speaking with the treasurer, there are 12 funds currently held by the state that would be able to, by their objective, allow for the possible volatility in investing in these type of things. Within those funds, about $30 million that are currently invested in equities. The proposed legislation provides an option to invest up to 5% into digital assets and precious metals. Therefore, there's about $1.5 million will be possibly subjected. Again, I absolutely trust our treasurer. She just came in front of Ways and Means and increased her revenue projections by another $10 million because she's done such a great job investing our current funds. So if she thinks this is a good idea for New Hampshire, while we've put some sides around it, we should allow her the opportunity to do this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. The bill is now on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Senator Rosenwald.
President, I rise in opposition to the committee's recommendation of ought to pass, and I feel a little bit like Don Quixote tilting at windmills today, but I do have several concerns with the bill in its current form. It's important to acknowledge that the state treasurer already holds some of this authority, so the primary effect of this legislation would be to expand the authority to include digital assets. Based on the market utilization threshold outlined in the bill, Bitcoin would be the only digital asset the treasurer would be permitted to invest in. And as an aside, I think that's the state picking winners and losers, which we don't like to do. But the treasurer's three priorities for investment in order are safety, liquidity, and yield. In that order, as she invests the state's $2 billion in cash reserves and the city and town's reserves of $750 million that are invested in the public deposit investment pool. Bitcoin is neither safe nor liquid. This bill would let her gamble with the state and local taxpayer money, which is something we should not be allowing. It would be fiscally irresponsible. Bitcoin is known for extreme volatility, so you would have to hold it for a really long time. And that would only speak further to the fact that her second priority is liquidity. This would not achieve that. A sudden drop in Bitcoin's value could result in substantial and unavoidable losses for the taxpayers, particularly troubling given our state's already somewhat fragile budgetary situation. State treasurers have a fiduciary responsibility to safeguard taxpayer funds. Investing in such a speculative asset would, again, in my opinion, be fiscally irresponsible. At a time when we're going to be making very difficult budget decisions driven by a shortage of available funds to meet the needs, I do not believe it is prudent to authorize legislation that could expose state and local finances to this level of risk and unpredictability. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Gannon wishes to speak.
Question for the good senator from District 2.
Yes. Will you take the question?
Thank you. Just picking up on the good senator from District 13's thoughts. I'm thinking of our retirement system, which last I checked is probably $5 or $6 billion short. And now you're just talking about putting in, I watched Bitcoin the last year go from like 17,000 up to probably around 90, back to 90 again. So we're like an 80–85% fluctuation in that speculative product. I just think we owe it to our citizens not to be gambling with their future. What say you on that?
Thank you. So again, we put sides on this, so it's 5%, and it's only of funds that would allow it. In the treasurer's words, again, because I trust the treasurer, due to the volatility of precious metal and digital assets, those investment alternatives are not suitable for the rainy day fund or our operating class fund. So she already is looking at this and identifying which funds might or might not be eligible and able. But the rainy day fund is definitely not one. Our state operating budget, our retirement funds are not the things that she's looking at. She's looking at those other longer term funds that could sustain some volatility and growth.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Ernest wishes to speak.
President, I'll be brief. I appreciate the comments that have been made thus far, and I'd point out that personally, I do not invest in Bitcoin and would not recommend it. However, I think that we need to trust the treasurer to do the right thing. And this is, these are folks who understand markets, they understand assets, they understand how to invest for the best return, and this is enabling, that's all it is. Conditions may change with Bitcoin and other digital currencies over time such that they become viable assets. Presently, they are not. Nevertheless, I think enabling the treasurer to do this makes perfect sense. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. The bill is still on second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the question is on the adoption of the committee recommendation of ought to pass on House Bill 302. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no? No. The ayes have it. The motion of ought to pass is adopted, and the bill is ordered to third reading. Okay. I recognize Senator Birdsall for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate adjourn from the early session, that the business of the late session be in order at the present time, that all bills and resolutions ordered to third reading be, by this resolution, read a third time, all titles be the same as adopted, and that they be passed at the present time. Thank you, Madam President.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The early session is adjourned. We are now in the late session. Are there any announcements to come before the Senate? I just have two, if you would indulge me. First, just to remind everyone that we are having a lunch for our interns, and I would like to thank our interns. They've been with us since January, and they have done a tremendous job in getting us to where we are here today. So I want to thank them. Some of them are here today, and we will be giving them resolutions at the luncheon, and we just need to realize they're also college students. So many of them are in the process of either taking a final exam or preparing for a final exam. So I'd like to wish them the best of luck in their studies, for those of them that are going on. And for those who are going out into the big bad world, we hope you've learned some things that are going to help you when you get out there, but we wish you the best of luck always. The second announcement is I'd like to bring your attention to a memorial that is set up down in the Hall of Flags. Yesterday was the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. And so a memorial has been placed downstairs. I'm not sure if folks remember, but the creation of the wall was very controversial at that time. And one of the things that they did was they took portions of the wall and they brought them from state to state so people could see. And what you have downstairs are items that were left here in New Hampshire when people came to see the wall. It's very touching, it's very moving. There are letters and photos because we don't want these people to be forgotten. They were our friends, our neighbors, our family members, and they made the ultimate sacrifice during that war, which we all know was an unpopular war. So please, if you have an opportunity, stop down at the Hall of Flags and see just how moving and what citizens said at that time. Okay, are there any further announcements to come before the Senate? Seeing none, without objection, all personal privileges or unanimous consent shall be entered into the permanent journal of the Senate. Is there any further business? I recognize Senator Birdsall for a motion.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the business of the day being completed, that the Senate recess to the call of the chair for the purpose of introducing legislation, re-referring bills to committee, scheduling hearings, sending and receiving messages, vacating bills, and processing enrolled bill reports and amendments, and when we recess to the call of the chair.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate is in recess to the call of the chair.